Good morning, Nicole. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Great. We were just laughing a bit because I only know Nikki as Nicole, but I guess most people call you Nikki.
Yep, yep, that's all right. Most of them do.
Yeah, no one
So,
calls me Jennifer unless I'm in like big, big trouble. So I totally get it.
yeah, I grew up with a Nicole, so a lot of my family still calls me Nicole, but I would say the majority of the people call me Nikki. So,
Yeah, you look like a Nikki. This is great. I'm so happy to see you face to face. We've known each other for a little
yeah,
while on the internet, and I know that you have a wonderful testimony. I don't really know very many details, which is probably the case for many people watching. I have been waiting for the time for this to work out so that um, this isn't a selfish project. Like I'm doing it for multiple reasons, but the kind of side benefit for me is I get like an hour and a half one-on-one time with sisters that I find particularly interesting. So this is a
yeah,
treat for me, and I think that it's going to be very, very good experience for both of us and everyone watching, that you will share your testimony that glorifies the work that the Father has done in your life. So I'll let you
yes.
just start, Nikki, and if you need redirection, I think you're going to be able to just let this flow.
Okay, well, I do want to comment on what you said. What you guys are doing with the testimonies is amazing. I know there's some people that's been in Torah for years, but I feel like the majority hasn't. And you guys collecting the testimonies and letting people be transparent has been helpful immensely to me, and I know to so many other people. So what you guys are doing is great. I love it. So, and it's an honor that I even get to share some of mine. So,
Great. Well,
but
welcome to this collection of. It's funny though, I have had, now that you say that, I've had this feeling of like if ever we wanted targets on our back, it would be this channel. You know, when Revelation talks about those who have the testimony of Christ and who follow the law, like I'm like, here you go. This is us. So that's not
yeah.
the intention, but I do know that we're packaging this together as like, hi.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's okay. So we know how it what happens in the end.
Amen.
So, but okay, so putting this together, I really struggled with two things. And the first part was, what do I share? Because I have days of testimony. Um, and then how do I share it? Because I don't want to come off as bragging. I've seen testimonies where I felt almost like it was an indulgent in bragging on how it was presented. And God has brought me through so many things that I don't ever want to make anybody feel like I'm proud of the things that I did or that any of the glory is my own. Um, Trying to think how to word this carefully without hurting feelings. Um, I just um, I want to make sure that my testimony doesn't. Sorry. Um, I just want to make sure people know I'm not proud of what I've done. And there's a lot of stuff that I've been through and that I've done, things that have happened to me, but also being a cause of other people's pain. And so it was very hard for me to determine what I wanted to share because a lot of my testimony does affect other people, whether it's my kids or my family, friends that I've had. And so just the what to share and the how to share it was very hard for me. And so that's why it took so long for me to get back with you about doing my testimony. I just wanted to say that first.
It's
So if I
beautiful. I mean, it means that you take it not take yourself seriously, but you take the situation and the gravity and other people's feelings into account, and to not rush into it is the best way that you could have done it. So I'm glad that you have everything organized,
thank
and
you.
just take your time. And I'm here with a cup of coffee. I've stolen everything from my husband. I'm in his office. I've got his hoodie. I found his weird mug. I don't know too much, but I think that
Oh my
Spock is
gosh.
giving an Aaronic blessing or something when he does this. Anyway, I'm here
That's
super
so funny.
relaxed. I'm on vacation here, so take all the time that you want and I will just happily listen.
Okay, all right. Well, so there, I could take my testimony in several different ways. I could talk about some of the stuff from my childhood that molded and affected me, or my terrible parenting in the beginning. In my 20s, I was atheist. I stopped believing in God around 19. Um,
Can you just back up a
it
little
would,
bit before that? You stopped believing in God, so were you raised in the church?
okay, so when I was younger, my dad was Roman Catholic. We spent most of our church time in the Roman Catholic Church, and they found out that my mom had been married before. And so we were asked to leave. We weren't allowed to be a part of that church anymore. And so we kind of hopped around. My mom didn't really have a faith. So I think she was Christian, but she didn't really know where she belonged. And so we was in the Jehovah Witness church for a while. Um, then we were asked to leave there because she wouldn't give up birthdays and certain holidays. And and then we went, I think from there we went to non-denominational church. And that's where I had most of it, I would say, in my younger years. It was Roman Catholic. And then probably around 11 or 12, then we went non-denominational. So that's where I was exposed to like speaking in tongues and the movement of the spirit and stuff like that. And so through my teen years, I was a part of a youth group, and it was a great youth group. It was mainstream Christianity, of course, but I learned so much, more than I even knew I was learning, because I thought I was, passing notes and hanging out with the youth group and not really paying attention in church. And when I became atheist, I realized how much I really knew about the Bible, because I could sit there and argue with a Christian the faith, and I knew so much more than I had any idea that I ever learned sitting in church. And so that was just kind of crazy how it happened. So I tell parents now, like, just expose your kids, because they're learning more than you even think that they are. They're hearing.
So you hear of people converting from atheism to Christ, for example. It's
Hmm.
rare that I've heard somebody make that distinction of like, I was Christian and then I became atheist. Like, how does one become atheist? How do you
Um,
erase all of the stuff that you know?
well, so I was around 8, I think, when I gave my life to Christ. And actually, it wasn't even through my family or the Roman Catholic Church. I have an older sister that was raised separate from us. She was raised with her grandma, who was a Christian, and I'd gone to church with her. I would stay like every other weekend with my sister at her house, and I remember going up to the altars in a Pentecostal church, and I gave my life to Christ. I was, like I said, 8 or 9, not very old. I really feel like God honored that at that age. I was a tender age, and I obviously didn't know a lot, but I believe He honored that. And while I fell away and didn't keep my covenant, um, He never did. I think I believe that that moment in time um, was very detrimental to my future. But when I became a teenager, looking at the Christian church, there were so many holes in it that nobody could answer. I would hear of all these miracles, but I never seen any of my own. It was, and even the miracles I heard of, it was always somebody said somebody else that knew somebody else, and it was just never a very a direct miracle. This happened to me. And then as I'm reading, I'm just seeing things like, I'm being told in the Christian church that you don't have the Holy Spirit if you don't speak in tongues. And they would try praying over me, and I couldn't get the tongues. And so it was almost demeaning to me. I was like, so I felt self-defeated. Um, and and then there was just all the different types of Christianity. There was so many different denominations, and none of them made sense to me. So the older I got, I'm just like kind of seeing Christianity as this huge stumbling block. None of it makes sense to me. And I'd met a girl that was atheist. She was the first atheist that I had met, and she's pointing out all of these things to me that I can't respond to. I can't tell her what prophecies did Jesus fulfill. I know he fulfilled a bunch of prophecies, but I don't know what he fulfilled. She's asking me all of these things and I can't answer them. And to the point that I'm like, she's right. Like, this is crazy. Why am I believing in this? And I remember the first time that I said out loud that I didn't believe anymore, it was like a physical relief that I could feel off of my shoulders, like a physical heaviness that came off of me. Like I felt free. And now looking back at that, I'm like, wow, that was like that should have been my sign. Like there's something more to this. But instead, I felt free. Like I can breathe. I don't have all these rules to live up to. And all these other Christians are way up here and I'm down here and I can't get any answers and no prayers answered. And I'm not seeing everything that all these other Christians see. And I felt so free in that moment. And so I became a very proud atheist. And I became that atheist that my friend was, where I could corner Christians. I knew all of the weak areas and I could corner them. And I knew the contradictions in the Bible and I could play those against each other for Christians. And Christians have a lot of contradictions because they're misinterpreting the Bible. And so I got to where I knew all of those contradictions. And even though I didn't understand, because I'm atheist, I didn't understand at that time that they were very real. And they did all go together, but with the mistranslations, um, and the misteachings and the false doctrines, they didn't go together. And so it was very easy for me now as an atheist to be a stumbling block to other Christians. And I'm not proud of that at all. But that being said, I believe that I 100% believe that even with atheists, a lot of atheists don't believe in God because they genuinely don't believe in God. But if you can just give them something to make them feel or know that there may be something there, they want to know. And so I feel like if anybody, whether it's Christian or I don't even care if it's a Muslim, if in their heart somebody genuinely wants to know God, if he's real, then he will show himself to them. And so I did talk a lot of Christians out of Christianity, or at least planting the seed of doubt. And I hate that now because for me, it was the Christian church later. You'll see in my testimony that brought me back to God. Um, but so it was all of those loopholes and discrepancies that were a stumbling block for me, um, that caused me to become atheist. So, if that makes sense.
Oh, I'm so glad that I stopped you and asked that question. That's wow. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And it's planting the seed of doubt is what you said. And it's so cryptic.
Hmm.
It's a rotten seed that you planted in the
Hmm.
hearts of people
Yep.
who are already believers.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you have repented for that and you're doing your best to make up for it now, to plant some
Oh,
good
yes.
seeds.
100%. 100%. And I feel almost like I made my commitments to God when I was 8. And I feel like he let me go. It's almost like a dog on a chain. I hate to use that scenario, but it's almost like a dog on a chain. I feel like he had a hold of me the whole time, but he let me go so far before he yanked me back and brought me back to him. And during that time when I was running out, I learned so much. When I work with atheists now, I gained so much knowledge by being an atheist. I my whole life, everything that I regret is now a lot of my strengths. When I reach people, I can be transparent about so many different things. And so I feel like he let me go to the school of hard knocks, and to help me, or to use me to be able to help somebody else, um in a different way.
I hear you.
So,
I've had that same thought of like, why did clearly his hand has been on me my entire life. Why did he let me go so deep into the new age? And
mhm.
I have realized highly likely because now I can help those people who don't see the
Yes.
new age
Yeah.
in what they believe is, in the new apostolic reformation in the churches or whatever. Like I've seen it all, guys. Like back up. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be one of the reasons, at least, where he lets us hit all of those awful places so that we can pull more people out of the pit, I think.
Right. And he gets the glory. So just last night I was thinking about this and I'm just like, man, I'm going through my testimony and I'm seeing all of these ugly things that I'm not proud of, and but he's brought me through so much, and I'm just kind of talking to God, and I realized something that in John 11, and that's where Lazarus, his sister, comes and they're telling Jesus that he's very sick and he's going to pass away, and he does pass away. And something that Jesus said is, because the word says, because he loved him, he waited. And I thought, man, it just hit me different last night. Like, he waited to bring me back because he loved me. He waited to bring Lazarus back because he got more glory bringing Lazarus back after 4 days in the grave than he would have if he would have went and healed him while he was just sick. Right? The miracle was so much greater waiting for 4 days. And so when he waited to bring us back to him, the miracle was so much greater. So that hit me last night. I was like, oh my gosh. So anyways, um just it just made me realize, like, he had a plan the whole time. So that's kind of what it reminded me of when you said that, what you said. So um but yeah. So okay, I lived a lot of life. I would say I lived a double life. I could give two testimonies, one giving um and both of them be true. One, giving them all of the amazing things that I've done in my life and all the compliments that or accomplishments that I've had, and it would be 100% true. And then I could give a testimony talking about all of the dirt I'd done in my life and how awful that it was, and the awful person that I am, and it be true also, because I literally was living both lives at the same time. And so um I am going to go with just kind of talking about the things that I was exposed to, the things that I did. And I'm not going to go deep into any of them. If there's something that you do want to know about, you can just ask me. Because we would have like days of testimony and be on here for hours and hours to rabbit hole into things. So I made a little list here. Some of the stuff, let's see. I'm just going to rattle off several things just to kind of give a kind of show what I did, and then I'll divulge into a little bit more on some of those things. But so I ran away from home when I was 15. Um, and it was kind of like my spreading my wings when I left home and I was a young adult. Um, I've I didn't live a lot of life when I was younger. We lived out in the country, and I didn't have a ton of friends. It was mostly me competing horses and my 4-H community and my immediate family. That was pretty much it. So it was very small, small friend group, small community. And I wanted to leave the farm so bad. And when I left, I swore I was never going back to the country. I wanted to live in the city. And that's pretty much what I did as a young adult. I I'd say my life kind of began around 18, really, when I became an atheist, because it gave me so much freedom to do what I wanted now. And I started drinking and partying and sexual immorality. I was very promiscuous. Um, got into the drugs. Marijuana was not my thing when I did try marijuana one time. And I remember, and this was actually right before I became an atheist. I remember laying there, just praying to God, like, take this away from me. I was so paranoid, and absolutely hated it. And I was sure I was never going to do drugs ever in my life. And, and so I hated that, and I never did it again. I never did marijuana. However, when I started partying, and I was working in a bar actually before I was even 21. They didn't know that I was underage, and I was working in a bar. that's where I was exposed to drug dealers and alcohol. I was drinking every single day. If I wasn't drinking in the bar that I worked at, I knew the special in every bar in town, and we would just bar hop every day of the week. And this is while I have kids. So I'm not a great mom. My kids were left a lot with my dad, with my mom. And I thought I was a good parent because I didn't leave them with whoever. They were always with my parents. And so I kind of justified that. But so I became friends with a lot of drug dealers, and which led into the cartel. And I seen so many things that I look back and and I was so naive at this time. I was so naive. Most people are like, "Wow, the cartel and cocaine," and I had no idea what a big deal it was. No, clueless. And I'm doing these things without knowing the seriousness of it. That what would happen if I would be caught and go to prison. And police stopped us one day. We leave the bar. I closed it down. Worked there, and one of the guys that was with us, he was a dealer and for the cartel, and he had a lot of cocaine on him. And naive me, I'm like, give it all to me. I'm a female. They're not going to search me. It'll be okay. And I put it in my bra. And no, I think about like when I'm talking about it, I'm like, gosh, I was so naive and so dumb. And but it worked. They got searched. The guys got searched. They searched the van, they searched everything. And we were free. We walked away. Well, because of that night, because I had helped him, now he was giving me money. It was all the cocaine I wanted. He got me in good with the other drug dealers in the cartel because they trusted me now. And this was a big deal to them. And so that kind of led to everything else, with me getting in deeper to such a careless lifestyle, um, that at one point I lost custody of my daughter. And I gave up a son that I didn't see until he was grown just a few years ago. Um, my I did win back custody of my daughter later, but it was awful the things that she went through during that time that I didn't have custody. It was awful going through
And she
the
was she with your parents or was she in the system?
so she went with her dad. She was
Okay.
with her dad. Um, However, he also was into drugs and he was very abusive. His girlfriend was very abusive. And it was like the longest, it was 2 years, which doesn't sound like a long time to some people, but she was coming. I would get her every other weekend and she would have, wooden spoon marks on her back, missing patches of hair. They were so awful to her. And because at that time, now it's a little more common for dads to have custody. At that time, it wasn't. And so the police never wanted to help me. They felt like, well, you're a mother and you don't have your kids, you lost custody. And so they wouldn't help me. They almost enjoyed me coming to them and begging for their help and being able to say no. And so it was really by the grace of God that I had an officer that helped me. He was a sheriff and a very dirty cop. He is not a good cop. He's known for being a bad cop, but God gave me favor with him, and he helped me so much. And it was like I said, it was 2 years, but through my daughter and several circumstances, everything fell into place, and I was able to get her back, and not just get her back, but protect her where she didn't have to go back there, not for
And
visitation, not for anything.
she's old now. Like she's not a child anymore. How old are your kids now?
So she's 28.
Okay.
My youngest is 18 and my oldest is 28. And but getting her back, so she lived with her dad for so she was 4 until I can't remember if it was 10 or 11 when I got her back. So there was a few years there. There's 5 or 6 years that she was with them, maybe even 7. And so she had other siblings. And while I got her back and I got to keep her safe, now as an adult, she struggles with that. Because when she left, her siblings were now being abused, and she feels that. So she has this heavy amount of guilt now as an adult, for leaving her siblings. Like they will tell her, "You left us," and because she, she was young at the time, but she really aided us in being able um, to trap him. She let me know where his drugs were at, and that was one of the things that helped us at least get her in the door, or get in the door of his house, and to me to get emergency custody to be able to bring her back home. But now because of that, she deals with that. And so it was good and bad. It was good we got her out of that situation. She got to live a good life. I mean, she has a great life now, but she has a very strained relationship with her siblings, and that's hard for her. So it's just one of those things, when we don't do things God's way, the consequences are still there, unfortunately. And if I could go back and have one marriage and stay in that and raise my kids safely with a husband and not blended, and that would be great. Obviously, that's not an option, but um, the kids do hurt, and I hate that for her. But so um, So yeah, so during this time, I have my kids and they're going through their own thing, and um it just, I hurt my kids even though it wasn't intentional. In my mind, I would justify things like I'm going to college, and I'm working. And so if I wanted to party and I wanted to go do things, I had the right to. It was never, I go to college and I'm working and now I have time with my kids. It was, I have time to go party. And so it was, I was a really crappy mom. So, but yeah, when I talk to women are my heart, and when I talk to other single moms, there's a lot of things that I did and I went through that I don't share, except for with certain people. And moms are my heart, single moms, struggling moms, because I was that person. Everything that I ever said against somebody, or that I would say about people, always came back on me. I would say stuff about women having kids with different fathers. Mine have different dads, I would say something about people being obese, and I gained so much weight. It was just like little things like that, but any little thing, big or small, it always came back on me. And I guess that was just, God chastises those he loves. And he made sure I couldn't do anything without it coming back on me. But yeah, so um, so during this time, I'm just living a reckless lifestyle, extremely reckless, with the drinking and the partying. I mean, I was in bar fights. I was very proud to fight. I'm only 5 feet tall, so for me to walk in and get in a fight was a big deal. It was like, and I was fearless because I knew if I lost, it was okay. Nobody expected me to win anyways, and if I won, then it just made me 10 feet tall. And so lots of fights, in and out of jail. um I mean, I God saved me from so many things. Like, I went to jail and it was always for petty stuff. It was never for anything big. It was for fighting, it was for battery, it was for driving with no license, it was for things like that. um and when it was going to be a big thing, he just took me out of it so easily. I was pregnant, and just days before I gave birth to my daughter, and I got in a fight with two girls. I came home. The man that I was with at the time was there with two girls. And of course, I'm livid, and I get in a fight with them. And one of them leaves and runs straight to the police station. And the other one's there. She actually ran into the bathroom instead of running outside and leaving. She ran into the bathroom where there's no exit. And so I got a hold of that girl, and charges were pressed, and they were going to be felony charges, battery with bodily injury, and I got out. I got out of it. We went to court, and the judge had me stand up and basically laughed about it. He was like, she's 5 feet tall and she did all of this. And they did exaggerate it a lot. They really did. I mean, they said I punched her one time and she flew into the table and broke it and she has all these injuries. And it really, that did not happen. There was a lot of exaggeration. But because of that, they basically threw the whole thing out. I mean, they said, well, she's pregnant, she has hormones, that everything's off balance. This isn't her normal character. And the judge thought it was very hilarious that I was only 5 feet tall and there was this stack of papers here that looked awful, and didn't take any of it serious. And so I walked away from that, and that was going to be my biggest felony at that time. And then there were times when, like twice, that I was on a chase from the police, and one of the times, I took off in a car. I had no license, no proper plates or insurance for that car. I had people with me that were wanted. I was drinking. I was very intoxicated, and just took off. I knew we were going to go to jail anyways. My best chance was to try to outrun the police. And we get out into the country, and I'm in this field behind a barn, and I think we get away from the police, and then we just start seeing them come in from everywhere. And this is probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And so they come, they surround us with guns drawn, and I'm like, this is it. I'm really going to jail this time, and it's going to be for something big. And no, an hour later, the the several officers left with people that did have warrants. They left with them. My friend and I are left there still, and one officer left with us, and he says to us, I'm going to leave and I'm going to drive all the way to Muscatine. This was in Iowa. I'm going to go to Muscatine, and I'm just going to trust that you're going to stay here and wait for somebody to come pick you up. I was like, what? He's not even going to take us to jail. I was the driver, and he's not going to take us to jail. He didn't impound the car. They didn't do anything. And I just couldn't believe it. And he left, and I tell my friend, like, is he waiting down the road just to see if we're gonna leave? Or, is this like a trap? And so we wait for about an hour, and I really didn't have anybody to come get us. Um, and at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know how he thought somebody was going to come get us, but in the country. But so we waited, and then we left. We got in the car and we drove back home, and never a problem again. And I don't know how many times police stopped me for stuff like that. And it was like, just um it could have ruined my life. It could have gotten me caught in the system and snowballed. I've seen people snowball with very small cases, and so many things that God delivered me from, and carried me through, and protected me from, I guess I should say. And I look back at that and I'm like, man, I was atheist then. I used his name in vain. I cursed like a sailor and had no respect for him. Um, and he always carried me through. I mean, he prevented me from getting a very big rap sheet,
It,
in so
it's
many
it's
cases.
becoming so, thank you for that's all. I'm in awe because like before I met my husband, I never knew anybody who went to jail for a moment of their life. You know what I mean? Like for a
Hmm.
woman, for a sweet, kind, God-fearing woman in front of me to be telling me all of these stories. And we do laugh, right? Like I'm short like you too, and we're feisty, and it's funny to think of a short pregnant woman going to, it's not funny, but you know what I mean? Like there's some
Yeah.
weird humor, dark humor actually.
Hmm.
But in doing these testimonies, it's so clear to me that because he does know the end from the beginning, he knows who are his. He knows who will eventually come back to him. And he
Yes,
protects us
yes.
through all, like Anyway, that's so crazy. I'll let you continue. I just wanted to say that it's so clear that he has his
Yeah.
hands, and he prevents so many of his children from dying prematurely, or from
Yeah.
ending up in prison forever.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
You should have gone to jail.
Yeah, I should have. I really should have. Yeah, and I tell people that what you said all the time. He knows he knows what's going to happen in the future, and he knows who's going to come back to him. And and then I get caught between also the predestination, was I predestined for this? And so he knows what I'm going to do when, down the road, how far I can go. And yeah, God's been so amazing in my life. I mean, it's why I just get it's hard for me to not get frustrated with Christians. Sometimes I just want to shake them and be like, if you would just listen, there's so many things that God just wants to love us through and carry us through and deliver us from. And I mean, just I have so many things that I could talk about that he done for me while I was an atheist, before, Jesus, he died on the cross while we were still sinners. And that's me. Like I was still an atheist, but yet he was helping me so much and taking care of me. And I mean, and there's a couple times where I could have died. Twice I overdosed, or not overdosed, twice I uh kind of overdosed. I was in the hospital for alcohol poisoning. And one of the times I had a beer, and then I think I started on another one, and that was it. And the doctors couldn't figure out why it affected me that way. So the doctor said, I mean, I was awful. I was incoherent. The ambulance took me, and I remember them cutting my bra off of me and hearing the lady say, I don't know what she's on, but she's going to regret it after this. And they gave me a shot of something because they thought I was on drugs. And I wasn't at this particular time. And so it come back clean. I barely had any alcohol in my system, but yet my body had gone into shock. And so the doctors told me you can't drink because it can be one beer or 10, but your body doesn't have a tolerance to it. I listened for about a minute, maybe a couple of weeks, and I was like, well, that's only the second time that's ever happened. And then I went back to drinking. But there's two times when that happened. And it was, you know, with all the drinking that I did daily and lots of drinking, I could outdrink the guys. Um, I easily could have died in any of that time if it wasn't from the alcohol poisoning, even just the carelessness. I remember being on I-80 from Indiana to Iowa and going over 100 miles an hour, and I was so intoxicated after leaving a casino that it's an 8-lane highway, and I remember debating if I wanted to slow down because I literally was crossing all 4 lanes to try to get home. I was so intoxicated I couldn't stay in a lane. So I was debating, do I go slow and careful? I was very aware that I was extremely intoxicated, or do I go really fast and hurry up and get home before the police stop me? Well, I chose the second one. I was going probably 100 miles an hour. I remember passing all these semis and taking up all lanes and thinking like one of them is gonna call the police on me. So I just kept going faster and faster. If I hurry up and get home, then I'll be safe. And I did make it home, obviously. But I look back at times like that, and there were so many times I drove intoxicated. And it's just like, man, you're on I-80. And I was going 100 miles an hour and very intoxicated. Now, granted, it was late at night. There wasn't a ton of cars on the road, but I could have lost control of my car. I could have passed out. There's just so many things. And careless situations that I know God brought me through that I've seen other people not make it through. Um, with the cocaine, I was doing a lot of cocaine. I have a very high tolerance. I have a high tolerance for alcohol and drugs, but I'm not an addict. I I when I did stop doing cocaine, it was very easy for me. It was just like, okay, I mean, no withdrawals, no nothing. Same with alcohol. I've never been addicted, so I have no tolerance for addicts, very low tolerance for addicts. Um, that's probably my weak area is compassion for drug addicts. I did a lot, but it was easy for me to walk away. So I don't understand that side of
Yeah,
things.
I have seen you. I've seen you come down a little hard on like, guys, get it together. This is your issue. This is your problem. But I didn't know sort of
Yes.
where the I don't want to call you callous. It's not the word. It's the
Oh,
word that's
it
coming
is
from.
callous.
Yeah, sorry.
It's callous.
Okay, so that point of view coming from somebody, to me, it would come from ignorance of somebody who hadn't experienced what you've experienced. So that's very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. No, it's because I I did so many drugs and I could walk away from it easily. But that's one of my weaknesses, not understanding it. But I do have to remind myself that I'm blessed to not have an addictive personality because other people do. And my brother's one of those people. My my brother, he's an addict, and I hope he's delivered it from it. He stays clean right now on Suboxone, which isn't really clean to me. Um, but at least he's not doing heroin or meth. I mean, he's done all of it. I
And
have
I
another
do
brother.
think for various reasons with those kinds of drugs, I definitely have a compassionate understanding why to just pull the plug on that is a terrifying
Yeah,
option. It's
yeah,
I totally get it, even though I have zero experience with drug addiction. I have none.
yeah, yeah. It's a hard one for me. I I hate drugs, and it sounds like so hypocritical to say that because I done drugs. But I hate it. Like I was so blessed to be brought through it untarnished, really. Um, to a point. I say that loosely because, my kids did pay a price and a lot of people around me did also. But I have a brother that overdosed, passed away. I didn't really get to know him. I wasn't raised with him. We actually started talking just maybe a year before he passed away. My brother, that's a current addict, he's overdosed a few times in front of me. One of those times, and it's hard for me with him because I seen him clean and sober. I seen him have a beautiful marriage and a beautiful family, and I knew him before the drugs. And so even with him on Suboxone, it's still not him, and it's hard for me to talk to him and see him that way, and know who he is without the Suboxone, without the drugs, and it makes me sad for him, really. Um, that he has that need to be like that. But when I got saved, I haven't got to this part yet, but when I got saved, I the I got married a year after I got saved. My first husband was he was a recovering addict. He started doing heroin at 12 years old with his mom, and he was in and out of boys school. He stole cars. He was an alcoholic. He led a bad life. He went from boys school, turned 18, straight into prison, and he was in the system his whole life. Dealt with addiction his whole life. And when our youngest was 7, he passed away, and he was clean. He was our marriage. He was clean until he relapsed, and then there was that separation. Um, but he was an amazing person. He had a heart for youth. I mean, he loved youth, and it was a gift he had, really, because he could identify with them and they would listen to him. And so he ended up relapsing. And the day he relapsed, the day of his funeral, I should say, he was supposed to speak at Purdue University about addiction. And so it was just, they actually ended up coming to the man that he was supposed to speak for, ended up coming to his funeral. And it was very eye opening for them, and so and he loved God so much. I hate that that he relapsed. But it was just a few, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months before he passed. He sent me this letter, and he said that he was being tormented by demons, and that he didn't know if he was going to be able to make it this time. And he said he told God that if God's not going to deliver his demons from him, then deliver him from his demons and just take him home. He didn't want to be here anymore. And then he relapsed and he passed away. And I think about that and I'm just like, is that what God did? Did because people, will say all the time, well, if they when they overdose, they're going to hell, or they're not going to make it to heaven, they're not going to have eternal life. And then I think about that, and I've read that letter so many times, and I'm like, was God answering his prayer? Did he just take him? Is that what he did? He was tormented. He felt he was going to relapse, and then he did, and he's gone. God took him home, and or did he? I don't know, but
He gives and
just
he
things like
takes,
that.
it's hard to know. I don't know if you watched the testimony I recorded with Victoria recently. It's really worth watching. It's so so good with Victoria Fink, and she tells the story of how. Do you hear that siren?
Uh-uh.
I'm so not used to, I'm in a small town in Western New York, and there's this crazy siren that goes off at noon every day, and it sounds like I should be hiding under the desk because of a bomb. I don't know what it is. It's systematic. Anyway, sorry, it scares me every time. But she tells the story of how she had, she would do heaps of drugs, and she would just be pleading with the father to take her, and he didn't. And he
Yeah.
took everyone around her, and he didn't take her. So I don't,
Yeah, I'll have to
he
watch
is the
that.
one. He's the one who, you know, well,
He decides.
yeah.
He really does. And when my first husband passed away, I did not tell my girls why. You know, Alicia, she's my youngest. She was 7. The next day was going to be a wedding, my cousin's wedding. So they were little. They were so excited. They were excited about their nails and their hair, and getting to wear their dresses and all of these things. And it was a Friday night. I came home. At that time, I was Christian by this time. I was saved by this time, but I still celebrated pagan holidays. So this was a Halloween party. I took them to a haunted house. My oldest to a haunted house. A whole bunch of us friends met, and I came home that night late, and to find out that they had called and said that he'd passed away. And the next day was the wedding of my cousin, and I didn't have the heart to tell them. And I was just like, man, I kept it in for 3 days. I kept it. I couldn't tell them Friday, and then Saturday was the wedding. I guess 2 days. Sunday is when I sat them down and told them. And but I just told them that it was a heart attack. It wasn't a heart attack, but I didn't tell them it was drug induced. I just left it at that because I didn't want to taint their memory of him. I didn't want them to focus on that, especially at that age. They were too young. Um, and I never needed to tell them what happened until my youngest turned. It was right around 14, I believe. She started following his path without knowing. She never knew the things he was doing. I mean to a T. He started drinking at young age. He was drinking, doing drugs, stealing cars, and she was doing all of these same things. Now, not the hard drugs that he was doing, but I was having parents contact me and say, "Hey, I don't have Snapchat. I don't have a lot of the social medias other than Facebook. Your daughter's posting videos. She's doing acid, and your daughter's doing this, and your daughter's doing this, and um, she was stealing our car. We didn't even know it for I don't even know how long, probably 6 months at least, because I didn't expect it, so I wasn't looking for that. And so she started doing all these things, and then she started getting into drugs and drinking, and that's when I finally had to sit down and tell her, because in her mind it was no big deal. She's like, "Mom, it's just experimenting. Everybody's doing it. They go to the bridge and they drink, and
So were these
no
kids that
big
like
deal."
these kids was do you guys have like a home prayer life and like go to church and that kind of stuff? Or were you living a like where were you on your walk and your faith as a family that this was going on
So,
also?
so this was kind of recent. So this was during COVID. This was in 2020. Her whole friend group changed during this time. She was doing really well in school. She was doing great. Now there was isolation. Nobody could leave. So that's when she started spending a lot of time on Snapchat. And her friend group changed. Her friends weren't allowed to visit her. They were quarantining. And so there was all these other rebellious kids that their parents didn't care or they weren't watching them and they would sneak out and they would go meet. And so this was the fun group now for her. These were the ones that she'd never been around that kind of rebellious stuff with her friend group. Um, and now she was stuck in the house. She had no sports. She had no school events. She was here, but she could sneak out and meet people. Um, it was the bad crowd. It was the drinkers and the ones that were doing drugs. And so it really changed her path. I mean, completely. Still, it's a struggle. We're still dealing with a lot of stuff with her, but I mean, 100 times better than she was, but it's still a rocky road a little bit,
Because it's our
but
own
that's when it
paths, right?
changed.
Like I see where you're at, where you seem to be at, and where you'll catch us
Hmm.
up to where you're at. And it's like, our kids, especially the older ones, have got to walk this out for themselves too. We can't, just like we can't make the adult humans around us see the things that we see. We can't make our kids
Yeah.
sometimes either, even if they're,
Yeah. Yep. So, um, so I'm going to kind of back up and go through quickly a few things to bring it back up to speed because I kind of jumped ahead on some things. Um, when I got saved, I was atheism and I did all these awful things. And I mean, there was, um, I can identify with anybody on just about anything other than losing a child, as in the loss of burying one. Um, it's if it's giving a child up, losing custody, if it's abortion, I can identify with it. If it's atheism, I can identify with it. If it's parenting a gay teenager, I can identify with that. My oldest came out when she was 15. Um, if it's demonic oppression and possession and deliverance, I can identify with it. Um, the obviously death of a husband. The drugs have always been around me. Several friends, family members passing away. My family, my parents, alcoholism and drugs is everywhere in our family. Um, there's a lot of things in my life I can identify with people on. Um, but when I got saved, really saved, and I say that loosely because I feel like I was saved at 8 because I feel like God kept his covenant with me. But when I came out of atheism and I found God, it was not a person that came to me. Most of the time, somebody came to me, I could convince them rather than them convince me. But it was so weird because this was the year of Hurricane Katrina. It was that spring. I be, I had a really good life at this time now. I wasn't partying like I was. I was in a relationship. I was a stay-at-home mom. I just had a baby. Things are great. We're not struggling financially. We have a pretty home. I had a really good life, and I became so depressed and suicidal, and it was just this heaviness that I'd never experienced before. And so I had my kids, and this is before I married to my husband. I already had 3 of my kids, and I'm in this relationship, and he's gone working long hours. He's always gone, and I'm just at home by myself and very depressed, and he had no idea. And this day I decide I'm going to take my life and my kids' life because there's no way I want to leave my kids in this dark world. I literally felt like I was in this. box and I could see the world going on outside of the box, and I was stuck inside, and nobody could see me, but I could see everybody else. And it was like tunnel vision. And so I decided this day I was going to take my life and my kids' life. And he's at work, and sorry, I'm going to try to not get emotional here, but so he leaves for work, and I take my kids out to the garage. And I'm like, I'll take them first and then myself. And and then I'm like, no, we'll do this all together. I can do this easily. We can do carbon monoxide poisoning, and then we can all go together. And all of a sudden, somebody knocks on the door of the garage. We're in the garage, not the main part of the house, and it's Jehovah Witnesses. So this guy, of course, he's the one to talk, and I'm panicked in my mind. You know, when you're doing something wrong, you know it, and maybe nobody else does, but you feel like they know. And in my mind, I'm panicking. I'm like, this guy knows what I'm doing. And I just want to appease him. Oh, yeah, you want to go talk? Let's go talk. Yeah, tell me about the work, And I was just like, and I believe I even left my kids in the garage during this time. I didn't want to, I just wanted to make this fast, like hurry up and get him out of here. And so he comes knocking on my door, go in the living room, we're chatting, we're talking, and it jolted me long enough to be like, what am I doing? Like you're about to take your life and your kids' life. And it shook me long enough for me to call my mom and let her know what was going on. And my mom and I didn't really talk at this time because my mom is a very bad alcoholic. And so our relationship is very strained. But man, I can tell you, um, I'm so grateful for my mom that day. She came and she stayed 3 days with us. And that's all it was 3 days of a very heavy, heavy presence that I can't explain. And I've never felt it that heavy again. And then it was gone. Um, and and so that was that for a while. Just a couple months later, I started feeling this deep desire to read the Bible. And it was so stupid because I was not reading the Bible because I wanted to get to know God or I believed it or any of that. So I went and I stole one off of a church lost and found table because I was not going to pay for a Bible. I thought it was so stupid. I couldn't believe I was doing it. I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. So I went and got the Bible. Oh, wait, during this time, because of that, because I had been so depressed, we decided to move closer to my mom. So we got an apartment closer to my mom. He was gone all the time. So it was like, okay, well, after this happened, let's get where I'm safer. And so we moved into this apartment next to my mom. And I started having this desire to read the Bible. And so I go and I steal one off a lost and found table. And I become consumed. Like I'm just reading, 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 reading. I mean, hours of day. And now I start realizing that I'm starting to pray. I can't even go to sleep unless I've read. And when I started reading the Bible, I mean, I literally sometimes would read one sentence out of the Bible to go to sleep. If in the beginning, if I hadn't read the Bible that day, I couldn't go to sleep. So I would be like, I just knew the spirit in me would just know, oh, I got to go read the Bible. And so to cheat, I'd read one sentence and close it. And then I could go to sleep. And that one sentence became one paragraph, and one paragraph became one chapter. And then I just became consumed, I'd say probably over 2 or 3 weeks. And then I started finding myself praying. And I didn't, I now became more agnostic. I was praying, but I still wasn't 100% sure. Um, but it definitely was growing in me, and I was becoming consumed at that time. Well, then trying to think how it went first. I decided to fast. Okay, wait. Let me say this. I was in a relationship with this man, and we had our daughter, but he was actually married, and they weren't together. but he was married. And when I met him, they were together, but I didn't know that. I actually found out he was married after I was pregnant. And well, we stayed together. Um, but now I'm getting consumed in the Bible and I'm being convicted about stuff. I want to be celibate. I don't want to have sex with him. I don't even want to be in this relationship because he's married. He offered to divorce, but that didn't feel right either. So I'm starting to get convictions now. I'm not going to church, but I'm reading the Bible. I'm getting convictions. I'm praying. And so I decided to fast. I need three things. I need a job if I'm going to be on my own without him. I need a car because we did have a vehicle, but he made the car payment. And then I needed out of this relationship. And so I fast. And my first time fasting in my life, even when I was younger in the church, we never fasted. Um, I fast for those three things: car, job, out of the relationship. At 3 o'clock ish, I'm just going to throw times out there, but it's kind of a general time frame. Um, I get a phone call for a job I'd been wanting for years, trying to get on, a very well paying job. And a friend of mine was working in the HR department there now and offers me a job there. So I'm like ecstatic. I just got a job offer, an amazing job. Now it's 30 minutes away and I still don't have a car, but I just know God's going to take care of this. And so she offers me a job. I take it. Around 7 o'clock that evening, my aunt calls me and she says, "Hey, my neighbor's giving a car away. She's looking for a family that needs it. Do you need a car?" I'm like, "What?" Why she asked me, I don't know, because we had a car. We had a new car. Yes, I need a car. I couldn't believe it. And, so my faith is building here. And then I get home that night and the neighbors come knocking on my door and they're like, "Hey, your boyfriend, he's in jail. The police came and got him. And I don't know what happened, but he's gone." Well, without going into a whole story, I never seen him again and he was deported. I was out of that relationship. So my very first time fasting, I got a car, I got a job, and I got out of the relationship by 9 or 10 o'clock that night. So that was a big faith builder. um, not 100%. You would think after all that, that would be like what seals the deal, but I still have doubt because that's how Satan works. Like, well, maybe there's just big coincidences. But so I'm still doubting a little bit, but he's given me enough where I'm still chasing. By this point now, I'm reading the Bible, praying, I fasted. I'm still not going to church, but my sister remember I said I had a sister that was raised with her Christian grandmother. She grew up, got married, wonderful Christian man, a praise and worship leader in her church, a big Joyce Myers follower. She had every series that Joyce Meyer ever made, I feel like. Um, and so she tells me like, "Hey, I have this music." She brought me Christian music. She brought me tons of series of Joyce Meyers to listen to. So I came to where without even realizing it's like I'm walking on autopilot. I'm not realizing I'm not living a secular life. I stopped watching TV, music, anything secular outside. My friends, secular friends, everybody I had distanced myself from. Now I'm only listening to the music she's giving me from Christian music. I'm listening to series after series after series of Joyce Meyer. And I'm just like growing. And I'll stop and say, I know a lot of people have feelings about mega churches and Joyce Meyer and stuff. And I understand that. But I feel like in my walk, God used that. And he can use anything that's meant for evil and make it for our good. And he used that for me. So I get up one night and I feel this desire to go pray. And so I go out to my living room and I kneel down at the couch and I start praying. And I don't even know. I don't remember what the prayer was about. I have no clue, honestly. I just know that I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt that desire to pray. It was the first time I felt like to go pray. Before this, it was just always, I was just praying because. This time I felt like I needed to go pray. And so I went and I prayed, and it was the first time I heard God's voice. And he said, it's time. That's it. It was time. But in my spirit, I knew he was talking about church. He wanted me to go to church, which sounds controversial because I'm very anti-church now, but this is how God worked with me. And so he said it was time, and I knew he was talking about church. Now I'm a single mom. I'm working second shift. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I make good money, but I'm also taking care of kids. I'm going through this huge custody battle for my oldest, and money's tight. And so I tell my mom, I said, I heard God and I know he wants me to go to church, but I don't know if he wants me to go this Thursday, which would be the next service, or if he wants me to go on Sunday. Now, if I go on Thursday, I'm going to miss work, and surely he wouldn't want me to miss work. I'm a single mom, and maybe he'll wait till Sunday. And I said, I don't know, but he's going to let me know. I know he's going to let me know. So Thursday comes, I get ready for work, and my mom was working with me by this time. Now I'm her ride. We're riding together, and my car immediately overheats. And I mean, we haven't even pulled out of the driveway. And I told my mom, I said, God wants me to go to church. That's what it is. She's like, you can't leave. Your car's overheating. I said, no, God wants me to go. I go upstairs, I changed, got ready for church, and my car never overheated again. So went to church, and from that time on I started going back to church. This was the church that we started going to when I was like 12, the non-denominational church. We always sat in the same spot since I was 12. I went right back to that routine. Old habits are hard to break. um, and I began going, and now I'm being convicted to tithe. And the Christian church puts a lot of pressure on tithing, and so I'm having that conviction. I'm just like, well, I need to tithe. I'm supposed to have faith. And if I don't tithe, I don't have faith. Um, and so I start tithing. I'm brand new to tithing. I start tithing, and my sister's going with me now to church also. And we get in the sanctuary. We always sit on the same side. Well, I told her, I was like, let's move over here to the middle and let's sit up front. So we do. Never, since I was a kid, ever did we change spots. We switch, then we sit down, and then I'm like, well, how about we switch spots again so I can sit on the outside just in case daycare calls. So we switch spots again. Now I'm contemplating my tithe this whole time, this whole week. I'm contemplating my tithe because Hurricane Katrina just hit, and I have enough for my tithe and for my gas the rest of the week to get to work, and it's $18 what I'm contemplating. Um, I'm like, I'm supposed to have faith, but I don't have enough now because Hurricane Katrina just hit. Gas is $4 a gallon. I'm not going to make it. And so I'm thinking, I got to tithe 38. Maybe if I give 20 and keep 18 to offset the cost, that'll be okay. And I don't know what to do. And my sister asked me, she said, have you decided what you're going to do about your tithe? Are you going to tithe the whole 38, or are you going to just tithe part of it? And I said, I don't know. I still don't know. Praise and worship starts. And this lady, and I'm praying. I'm just in my mind like, what do I do, God? I'm so nervous because I feel like I'm going to disappoint God if I don't give 38. And so I'm contemplating this $18. And this lady turns around during praise and worship, and she opens my hand and she said, she was embarrassed to give it to me. She said, I don't even know how much is in here. I know it's not very much, but on the way to church, God said, whoever I sit behind you, I want you to give them everything in your pocket. And I opened my hand, it was $18. To her, $18 seems so silly, but to me, it was the significance of the number. And that is the day it sealed my faith in God completely. And I didn't know that my sister was also, she was also, had kind of secretly become agnostic. She wasn't sure if she believed anymore. And when she's seen that, it also sealed it for her as well. And to this day, I wish I knew who that lady was. I've went back to that church like to try to find that lady, and I can't. And I wish I could tell her, like, you really did hear God if you ever doubt it. And I wish I could share that with her, and maybe God will open that door. I would love to be able to tell her and encourage her and let her know, like, she sealed my belief in him. Like God used her. And that was the final moment for me. I never ever since that day have ever doubted again. Um, which brings me to, you asked when I was having problems with my daughter, like what our home life was like at that time. Okay, so when Hurricane Katrina hit, um, that's when I got saved. I was 26 years old. And then from then to now, over the last 20 years, my faith in Christianity was up and down. It was a yo-yo. I always believed, I never stopped believing, but I would backslide. I would come forward and backward a lot. I always believed, but sometimes I'd go to church, sometimes I wouldn't. And so my kids were raised in that. Now, they weren't raised with me doing drugs anymore. They weren't raised with me drinking or any of that. I was a very hardworking single mom, but well, even when I got married, um, but they didn't have consistency for a long time. And and we were in and out of churches. I still, during this time, I know God is real, but I don't know how I feel about the Christian church because there's just still so many questions. I still have all the same questions that I had that before I became atheist, that weren't answered and didn't make sense to me. But so all my daughters did okay as far as, for the most part, as being easy, not getting into partying and the wrong crowds and stuff like that until my last one. My first one was a little hit and miss, but I have four girls altogether. Um, but Allie, my last one, that was the hard one. And I think that there was just so little consistency in her life with the up and down that I wasn't a good godly example, even after I got saved. And so that definitely, I'm sure, has played a lot into what she's gone through. And I know the loss of her dad has dealt with or has caused some things too. But um but yeah, I wish now, because I didn't come to Torah until I was um 2 years ago, and I'm 46 now, and she's 18. I wish I would have known that, because since I came to Torah, everything makes sense. All of the scriptures make sense. There isn't anything that I have found yet that I can't explain that doesn't tie together nicely. And I feel like I could have been more consistent in my faith and walked a straighter, more stable path, understanding things than, okay, I know God's there, but I really don't know how to live for him. This says this and this says this and nothing makes sense. And it was just such a sloppy walk that I had, that I wish I could go back and have been introduced to Torah sooner. Maybe, I guess if God didn't lead me there at that time, But when I did come to Torah, it was kind of crazy because that was through Seventh Day Adventist. A friend of mine is Seventh Day Adventist. He introduced me to the Sabbath. And then I'm studying the Sabbath and I start realizing there's missing books. And if there's missing books, then how can I understand any of it? And then I read, well, maybe Paul didn't write, or in the very first part of Timothy, it says it's Paul writing the letter. But then I'm reading now, when I'm studying this other stuff to do with Sabbath and the missing books, that maybe it wasn't Paul. They don't know if Paul really wrote that, or if it was an imposter, or if it was somebody writing it for Paul because he had vision problems. And so now I'm like, my whole world's falling apart because I was atheist and I believe this. But now, if this isn't true, then is any of the Bible true? And I mean, I was having a meltdown. I was so overwhelmed with the Constantine and the church reformation, and there was so much information like pouring out at the same time, that I was just so overwhelmed, and I just cried and I started fasting. And I was like, I need answers. I need answers. Nothing makes sense to me. I don't know if the Bible's true or not true, or I was just a mess. And I went to my friend, the Seventh Day Adventist friend, and I'm telling him all of this stuff because he's Seventh Day Adventist, but he's really more of a Torah observant person. He doesn't believe everything they believe. He doesn't do the Ellen White writings and all of that. Um, but that's how he started. So I think he just tends to identify as Seventh Day still. But I'm sharing all of this with him. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm so confused and I'm so overwhelmed, and everything made sense for a while, but now nothing makes sense. And he just reminded me. He said, "What did Jesus say when he was on the cross?" He said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know." He said, "You're trying, and if you miss the mark somewhere, it's okay." And I was coming home from his house that day, and I'm fasting, and God just spoke to me and reminded me that I'm born at the right time, the appointed time in history. If I needed those other books right now, I would have been born at a time when they were there. Um, I'm born at a time when these translations are a mess, but that's okay because he chose me to be born right now, and he's going to equip me for what I need to learn and find that stuff. And my job is just to seek, and he's going to lead me. And so it gave me so much peace. I was just like, finally, I can rest and not be afraid of choosing the wrong translation or um, be friends with my Christian friends who don't understand where I'm at and they think I'm in a cult. It just got me to a place where I really had to depend on wisdom and discernment, when to push and when not to push, and how to present things, and to be gentle with my Christian friends because I was saved through Christianity and they have just as much a chance as I do. And so it was that day was the first day where I felt capable of genuinely understanding the Torah life and beginning to dig in. And God showed me so many things, and He's working on so many things that sometimes I get excited and I get ahead of myself, knowing God's like, no, it's not time yet. You're not prepared. And every time I do try to jump ahead, I always fall flat on my face. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I shouldn't have talked about that because I don't know enough about it yet. But sometimes, you start getting revelations and you get so excited that you want to share before you're ready to share, before God's ready for you to share. For me, anyways, that's how it was.
Oh,
But
100%. The other day I just put the ad up for it today with two sisters, Chris and Sarah. We did a show about patience,
mhm,
exactly about this subject, that we need to be patient with other people who are walking this out on their own and
yeah,
also with ourselves. And sometimes if we sit
yeah,
on our revelations, we don't say things we regret.
yes, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm the queen of that. But yeah, and it's so hard because the Torah community is they can be very confrontational, and I feel like it's all done out of passion, like a genuine passion that you want everybody to have the truth that you have, but we're on different parts of our walk.
It's
We have.
passion, but I think sometimes it's also fear, you know, it's like maybe even a messiah complex where we feel if we don't convince, if we can't do the work of the Holy Spirit. And I mean, I've
Yes.
backed off even attempting, but if we don't convince all of the people around us to give up XYZ, the blood is on our
Mhm.
hands. And that's something that is perpetuated in this community too. That is, I'm not entirely sure it's true that we have to
Yeah.
single-handedly convince everybody out of whatever holiday or diet or whatever it is. We all had the opportunity to experience that in our own time. We know that he's faithful. We know he's going to show the people who want to know. And that's the other part of
Yeah.
it. If they don't want to know, they're not gonna see it. He won't show
Yes.
them.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And I have to remind myself that, Jesus said only those who come to him can come who the Father chooses. And so and that's a hard reality to accept when you're raised believing that everybody is
Yeah.
God's child and everybody has the same call. And I don't believe that. I believe everybody has the chance if they want to, but I have to remind myself that me, I can't save anybody. I can only be a tool for those who God is calling and who God is bringing to himself. And that's hard and frustrating because you want just everybody to get it. And
I have to say though, from
not
the
gonna happen.
outside, Nikki, and like I have all kinds of stuff come across my timeline, and I don't go out of my way too much to follow other people, even if they are sisters who I appreciate, like yourself. But from the stuff that comes up on my timeline that you have written or videos that you've made, there you do deliver it with a tenderness, even though they're like we said, oh, that I use the word callous to describe you, and you got it, and
Mhm.
you're not offended. But you do have a way of delivering stuff that shows your heart in wanting to soften the edges and not bark at people. It's absolutely coming
Mhm.
off tender, and we can see your heart. I can anyway, and I think that you're doing a service to many, many women, specifically women. I'm called to speak to women as well, and speak with women,
Mhm.
obviously. Um,
Yeah.
but you're absolutely doing God's work. And even in sharing this testimony today, I think that it's
Well,
gonna.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It really is my weak area. It's hard for me to be tender and gentle sometimes. I'm a very direct person. And there's times where I will write something out and then I will go back and edit because I'm like, that sounds a little too
See,
sharp.
but
And
that's my
sometimes when I'm
point.
writing it, I am sharp.
That's my
Do
point is
what?
that you can do that. You can go back and edit it, and you don't have this like, well, it's not my problem if they can't handle it. Because that's
Yeah.
tempting, right? Like, especially as a 5 foot feisty woman.
Yeah.
I know you. We don't really know each other, but now that we've had this conversation, I know you.
We understand that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Nikki. I don't know if
But,
there's anything else you wanted to say. I feel like it's a great place to wrap up
oh
unless there's
gosh.
anything else that you wanted to add. I'm 100% here.
Yeah. No, I think that's like the gist of it. I could go off and I plan on doing like small testimonies because there's so many rabbit holes. Like I think we all have tons of rabbit holes. Um my marriage now is a huge testimony in itself. That is something that I like to do with my husband and to talk to men who struggle and marriages who struggle with sexual addiction, pornography, adultery. We have been through the ringer on that, and just we went through an exorcism and an amazing deliverance with my husband, and so there's a whole different testimony on that. But I love having him share most of it, and we
Yeah.
share together.
Well, I mean,
But
if he please talk to him, Nikki, if he wants to come and share his testimony with Jesse, that would be amazing. We've noticed that
yeah,
the men are a little bit less reluctant to talk about emotions and feelings. The men come on
yeah,
and they come to share their testimony and then they veer off and talking about theology, which is great. But
yeah,
for sure, especially on that topic, men need to hear from other men who have struggled with these things so that they know
yeah.
the power of giving their life to Christ.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, he's a softie when it comes to talking about it. He does share. He was so callous and cold at one point in our marriage that man, when God changed that, he made him so soft that sometimes it drives me crazy. He
No.
definitely did a complete turnaround and but yeah, so anyways, yeah, that's I think that I hope that this reaches somebody. I know it was kind of all over the place and in different areas, but I can just say that God has just done such an amazing thing in my life with so many things that He's allowed me to walk in and walk through during my time of being an atheist that he uses it so much to bless other people and be transparent with other people and I feel lucky, like I feel so lucky when I'm helping a mother or women, like I said, that's my heart, when I'm helping another woman that's dealing with adultery or dealing with she's been a bad mom and she's lost custody and she just wants to get her life together now, or the atheists. I feel so lucky that I get to do that. And it sounds, I hate saying that because like I said in the beginning, I don't want it to ever sound like I'm bragging about anything, but I'm just so grateful for what God's brought me through because I love helping these people and I love being able to know where they're at and watch them walk through and grow. So it's what you do. You see it all the time and you get to hear everybody's stories and it's such a touching, moving, building, edifying thing to get to see and hear people's testimonies and watch them grow. So
Amen. Absolutely. Thank you so much for
yeah.
making the time to do this. And yeah, I look forward to talking again soon about all kinds of things. It's a lot of what you shared in your testimony was surprising to me. The atheist thing was not. I did not see that coming because of who I know you to be now. But I mean that's the
Yeah.
thing. We all end up on this path, and we all had our anyway. A lot of what you said was very very out of my realm of knowledge, and I'm sure that will be the case for the
Yeah.
people who watch. This was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Yes. Yep. Thank you. Thank you
Talk
for
to you
having
soon.
me.
Have a great day.
You too.